1994 was horror's awkward teenage phase, caught between the glossy studio sheen of the early 90s and the self-aware meta-commentary that was about to explode. The genre was restless, searching for identity in a landscape dominated by the Crow's goth aesthetics and Pulp Fiction's postmodern cool. The big franchises were tired, the indie scene was hungry, and something new was trying to claw its way out. Around the world, filmmakers were blending genres without permission, mixing cyberpunk with body horror, voodoo with revenge fantasy, surrealism with ancient legend. The rules were loose, the budgets were tight, and creativity filled in the gaps. These weren't films designed for mass appeal. They were made for the devoted, the curious, the ones still browsing rental aisles, looking for something different. So tonight we're diving into 1994, a year of practical effects mastery, genre experimentation, and unsung ambition, to spotlight 10 overlooked horror films that deserved better than they got. Lurking Fear, 1994. A group of thieves returns to a decaying small town to recover stolen money hidden in a cemetery, only to discover that something ancient and unholy has made the underground catacombs its hunting ground. What starts as a heist quickly becomes a fight for survival against creatures that have been feeding in the dark for generations. Directed by C. Courtney Joyner and produced by Charles Band's Full Moon Entertainment, The Lurking Fear is a loose adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft that trades cosmic dread for grimy, hands-on creature feature chaos. The film leans hard into practical effects and claustrophobic underground sequences, turning its low budget into an asset rather than a limitation. Jeffrey Combs shows up in a supporting role, bringing his trademark intensity to a town doctor who knows far more than he's letting on. His presence alone gives the movie a direct line to Full Moon's Reanimator legacy, even if this story plays in a very different register. The rest of the cast commits fully to the B-movie energy, delivering performances that feel right at home in a world where logic takes a backseat to atmosphere. The creatures themselves are gnarly, shambling things, part zombie, part something older and nastier. Joyner keeps the film moving at a brisk pace, never lingering too long on exposition, and letting the grimy production design do most of the talking. It's the kind of straight-to-video Lovecraft adaptation that knows exactly what it is: scrappy, visceral, and unapologetically weird. The Lurking Fear might not have the polish of bigger studio horror, but it has the raw, unfiltered spirit of a movie made by people who genuinely love the genre. And that counts for a lot. Hellbound, 1994. Two Chicago cops, one a hard-nosed veteran, the other his wisecracking partner, find themselves pulled into an ancient supernatural war when a series of brutal murders leads them to a demonic force that's been imprisoned for centuries. What starts as a standard homicide investigation quickly spirals into a globe-trotting showdown involving mystic artifacts, reincarnation, and a villain who makes most slasher icons look tame by comparison. Directed by Aaron Norris and starring Chuck Norris alongside Calvin Levels, Hellbound is one of the strangest entries in the action star's filmography, a film that tries to split the difference between buddy cop formula and full-on supernatural horror. The result is wildly uneven but never boring, especially when Christopher Neame shows up as Prosatanos, a demon with a taste for theatrics and a body count that spans millennia. Neame clearly relishes every moment of scenery-chewing villainy, delivering lines with Shakespearean gravitas while ripping hearts out of chests. He's the kind of over-the-top antagonist that elevates the entire production, turning what could have been a forgettable direct-to-video effort into something genuinely memorable. If only for his performance, the film hopscotches from Chicago to Israel, leaning into Indiana Jones territory, with ancient tombs and mystical prophecies. The action beats are solid Norris fare, roundhouse kicks and gunfights, but the horror elements give everything a darker, grimier edge than his usual output. It's the kind of genre mashup that could only exist in the early 90s, when action stars were still willing to fight demons alongside drug dealers, and nobody questioned the logic as long as the kicks landed. Mosquito, 1994. A crashed alien spacecraft leaks radioactive blood into a remote Michigan marshland, and the local mosquito population discovers a new food source, one that causes them to mutate into dog-sized bloodsuckers with an insatiable appetite. A park ranger, a drifter, and a group of unlucky campers find themselves trapped in the wilderness as the swarm closes in, turning a quiet weekend into a fight for survival against one of nature's most annoying insects, now amplified to nightmare proportions. Directed by Gary Jones, Mosquito is exactly the kind of creature feature that thrived in the mid-90s video market. Scrappy, inventive, and fully aware of its own absurdity without letting that awareness kill the fun, the film delivers on its premise with gleeful commitment, showcasing oversized practical mosquito effects that are equal parts impressive and ridiculous. These aren't CGI creations. They're full-scale puppets and animatronics that physically interact with the actors, giving every attack a tactile, B-movie charm. Gunnar Hansen, yes, Leatherface himself, shows up adding a touch of horror royalty to the proceedings. His presence feels like a knowing nod to the genre's history, while the film carves out its own spot in the creature feature pantheon. The rest of the cast plays it refreshingly straight, treating the threat with genuine urgency even when battling giant rubber insects. Jones keeps the pacing tight and the gore flowing, never letting budget constraints slow down the central spectacle. The mosquitoes are relentless, inventive killers, and the film finds creative ways to showcase their proboscis-based carnage without ever feeling repetitive. It's pure midnight movie comfort food. Silly, gross, and earnest in all the right ways. Night of the Demons 2, 1994. Years after the bloody Halloween massacre at Hull House, the sole survivor's sister attends a strict Catholic boarding school where she's tormented by both her traumatic past and judgmental classmates. When a group of rebellious students decides to sneak out for a Halloween party at the now-abandoned funeral home, they inadvertently awaken Angela, the demon who orchestrated the original carnage, and she's more than ready to throw another party. This one with a higher body count and creative new ways to claim souls. Directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, Night of the Demons 2 takes everything that worked about the 1988 original and cranks it up with a bigger budget, sharper effects, and a darkly comedic streak that sets it apart from most horror sequels. The film balances genuine scares with campy humor, never quite tipping too far in either direction. Amelia Kincaid returns as Angela, and she owns every frame she's in, equal parts seductive, terrifying, and gleefully sadistic. The Catholic school setting adds unexpected layers, giving the film religious iconography to play with as holy water and makeshift weapons become the students' only defense. Christine Taylor leads the young cast with surprising depth, playing trauma and determination without slipping into final girl cliches. The supporting players, including a young Merle Kennedy, give the film energy and personality, making you care just enough before things get inevitably messy. Trenchard Smith, an exploitation veteran, knows exactly how to pace a film like this. The kills are creative and memorable, blending practical gore effects with demonic transformation sequences that still hold up. There's real craft here beneath the surface chaos. It's a sequel that understands its assignment and delivers with style. Pure Halloween mayhem for the rental crowd. Shrunken Heads, 1994. Three teenage friends are murdered by local gang members in their rough New York neighborhood, their deaths just another statistic in a city that's stopped counting. But when a Haitian newsstand owner retrieves their bodies and performs an ancient voodoo ritual, the boys return as floating, wisecracking shrunken heads with supernatural powers, and a serious score to settle with the criminals who killed them. Produced by Full Moon Entertainment and directed by Richard Elfman, Shrunken Heads is pure early 90s, straight-to-video insanity. A film that somehow mashes together urban crime drama, voodoo horror, and dark comedy into something that feels like a fever dream cooked up during a marathon session at the video store. The premise is absurd, but the film commits to it with surprising sincerity, never winking too hard at its own ridiculousness. The shrunken head effects are exactly what you'd expect from Full Moon's Creature Shop, practical, grimy, and just convincing enough to sell the concept. They fly through the streets like demonic guardian angels, Delivering justice with a mix of supernatural vengeance and teenage attitude, Eric Egan brings warmth to the role of Mr. Sumatra, the mystical newsstand owner who becomes the boy's unlikely savior and guide. The film doesn't shy away from its gritty urban setting, treating the neighborhood violence with unexpected weight before pivoting into its gonzo supernatural revenge plot. There's a weird earnestness beneath all the B-movie spectacle, a genuine attempt to tell a story about friendship and protection, even if the method involves reanimated heads shooting energy beams. It's the kind of high-concept oddity that could only come from Full Moon's golden era, when no idea was too strange to greenlight. Nadja, 1994. The daughter of a recently deceased vampire drifts through the nocturnal landscape of downtown New York, searching for meaning in an immortal existence that feels increasingly hollow as she reconnects with her twin brother and becomes entangled with a married couple. Old bloodlines and new desires collide in ways that blur the line between predator and prey. Directed by Michael Almereyda and produced by David Lynch, Nadja reinvents vampire cinema as dreamy black-and-white Arthouse poetry. Shot partially on Pixel Vision, a toy Fisher-Price camera that gives certain sequences a ghostly degraded quality, the film feels like it's been unearthed from some forgotten corner of the early cinema vaults, then filtered through a downtown New York sensibility that's equal parts no-wave and gothic romance. Alina Lovensohn plays Nadja with magnetic detachment, moving through the film like someone perpetually caught between worlds. Peter Fonda shows up as Van Helsing, reimagined here as a weary, bourbon-soaked vampire hunter who seems just as tired of the chase as his quarry. The supporting cast includes Martin Donovan, Galaxy Craze, and a brief appearance by Jared Harris, all operating in a register that feels more existential than horrific. The film trades jump scares for hypnotic atmosphere, long takes, disorienting edits, and a jazz-inflected score that sounds like it's playing from another room. Almereyda treats vampirism as a metaphor for alienation and obsession rather than monstrosity, giving the whole thing a melancholic weight that lingers. It's vampire cinema for the indie crowd. Moody, elliptical, and defiantly uncommercial in the best possible way. Guyver, Dark Hero, 1994. Sean Barker struggles to control the alien bioarmor bonded to his body, searching for answers about the Guyver unit's origins while trying to maintain some semblance of a normal life. When an archaeological expedition uncovers an ancient alien spacecraft in the Utah desert, Sean is drawn into a conflict with the sinister Kronos Corporation and their army of monstrous zoonoids, all while discovering that the Guyver's true purpose may be far darker than he imagined. Guyver, Dark Hero is everything a sequel to a cult manga adaptation should be. Bigger, darker, and vastly superior to its predecessor, Wong ditches the comedic tone of the first film entirely, delivering a serious sci-fi action thriller that takes its source material and characters with genuine respect. The shift in approach pays off immediately. David Hayter steps into the lead role and brings real vulnerability and intensity to Sean, playing a hero genuinely burdened by the weapon he can't remove. The film explores themes of isolation and identity with surprising depth for a creature feature sequel. When the Guyver armor activates, the transformation sequences are visceral and unsettling. Wang's effects work is exceptional, making the biomechanical suit feel like a living thing that's as much parasite as protector. The zoonoid designs are grotesque and varied, each creature rendered through practical suits and animatronics that give every fight scene weight and texture. Wang stages the action with clarity and creativity, understanding how to showcase his monsters while keeping the combat dynamic and brutal. It's a rare sequel that completely reinvents its franchise, trading camp for intensity and delivering one of the most underrated creature features of the decade. The Puppet Masters, 1994, alien parasites descend on a small Iowa town, attaching themselves to human hosts and seizing complete control of their bodies and minds. A covert government agency led by a grizzled operative and his team races to contain the invasion before the parasites spread beyond containment. but fighting an enemy that wears the faces of friends, family, and fellow agents turns every encounter into a test of trust and survival. Directed by Stuart Orme and based on Robert A. Heinlein's 1951 novel, The Puppet Masters attempts to bring classic sci-fi paranoia into the 90s with mixed but intriguing results. The film captures the creeping dread of invasion narratives, the idea that anyone around you could already be compromised, and plays it with admirable seriousness. Even when the premise veers into B-movie territory, Donald Sutherland anchors the film as the old man, bringing weathered authority and world weariness to the role of a spy master. Eric Thal plays his son and protege, navigating both the alien threat and complicated family dynamics, while Julie Warner adds intelligence and agency as a NASA scientist critical to understanding the parasites. The chemistry between the leads keeps the human stakes grounded amid the body horror chaos. The slug-like parasites themselves are realized through practical effects that land somewhere between disturbing and schlocky. Their designs are effective enough to sell the threat, particularly in close-up attachment sequences that don't shy away from the visceral nature of the invasion. The film keeps the action moving through government facilities, quarantine zones, and infected neighborhoods, maintaining tension even when logic occasionally takes a back seat. It's a solid, mid-tier sci-fi thriller that deserved a bigger audience, blending Cold War-era paranoia with body-snatching horror for the post-X-Files crowd. Faust, 1994. Jan Švankmajer, the Czech surrealist behind some of the most unsettling stop-motion ever committed to film, turned his attention to the classic Faustian legend, and the result is a nightmarish descent into temptation, puppetry, and existential dread. A man wanders into a mysterious theater and finds himself drawn into a performance of the Faust story, only to realize the boundaries between actor and character have completely dissolved. Švankmajer blends live action with his signature stop-motion animation, creating a world where clay figures crumble and reform, marionettes jerk to life with disturbing autonomy, and the line between reality and ritual becomes dangerously thin. The film moves through the familiar beats of the Faust tale, the pact, the seduction, the inevitable damnation, but Švankmajer strips away any romanticism, leaving only raw, tactile unease. Petr Čepek plays the unwitting protagonist, with a mix of curiosity and mounting dread, navigating a labyrinth of crumbling Prague interiors and grotesque animated sequences. The puppets themselves feel more alive than they should, their wooden faces frozen in expressions that range from ecstasy to horror. There's no musical score to guide your emotions, just the unsettling sound design of creaking wood, scraping clay, and whispered Latin incantations. Švankmajer treats the Faust legend not as a cautionary tale, but as an inevitable trap, one that anyone could stumble into if they follow the wrong invitation down the wrong alley. It's a film that feels like a fever dream excavated from some forgotten corner of European cinema, where art, horror, and philosophy collide in the most disorienting way possible. Death Machine, 1994. A weapons corporation's latest prototype, a hulking, nearly indestructible killing machine designed by their most brilliant and unstable engineer, goes catastrophically wrong when a group of activists breaks into the facility to expose the company's unethical experiments. Locked inside with a predator that learns and adapts with every encounter, the survivors must navigate a high-tech labyrinth where every corridor could be their last. Written and directed by Stephen Norrington in his feature debut, Death Machine is a love letter to 80s sci-fi horror wrapped in 90s cyberpunk aesthetics. The film wears its influences openly, shades of Alien, RoboCop, and The Terminator. But Norrington brings enough visual flair and manic energy to make it feel like more than just homage. The titular machine itself is a practical effects marvel, a skeletal, multi-limbed nightmare that moves with unsettling fluidity. Through the corporate shadows, Brad Dourif steals every scene as Jack Dante, the psychotic inventor whose obsession with horror films and death has manifested in his grotesque creation. He plays the role with unhinged glee, delivering monologues that veer between tech speak and pure madness. Ely Pouget anchors the film as the corporate executive caught between conscience and survival, while William Hootkins and John Sherian round out a solid ensemble trapped in a steel coffin. The production design transforms abandoned industrial spaces into a near-future nightmare. All flickering monitors, steam-filled corridors, and blood-streaked metal. Norrington's camera work is kinetic and claustrophobic, keeping the tension ratcheted high even when the budget shows through. It's the kind of ambitious, effects-driven thriller that carved out its own niche on rental shelves. Smart enough to engage, brutal enough to satisfy. 1994 sits in this fascinating space where horror was still allowed to take risks without everything needing to be a franchise or an event. These weren't films with marketing campaigns or theatrical pushes. They were guerrilla efforts, passion projects, and budget miracles that found their audiences through word of mouth and video store luck. What ties them together isn't polish or prestige, but conviction. Whether it's Švankmajer's nightmarish puppetry, Full Moon's gonzo creature features, or Brian Trenchard Smith delivering a sequel that actually improves on the original. These filmmakers believed in what they were making, even when no one was watching. That spirit matters. These overlooked titles kept horror alive during a transitional moment, proving the genre could still surprise, disturb, and entertain without playing it safe. Some were weird, some were rough, some were brilliant, but all of them earned their place in the conversation. If you're into deep cuts, forgotten gems, and the strange corners of horror history, hit that subscribe button and let us know what other years or themes you want us to explore. Thanks for watching! And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.